we see a boy who has just finished dinner. But what else do we see? His sluggish demeanor, his tired eyes, and lack of energy. Let's take a step back to figure out why he may seem this way. Perhaps his lack of energy is from the steak dinner he ate earlier. But what if he had cut out the meat? Several studies show that a plant-based diet increases the body's metabolism, causing the body to burn calories up to 16% faster than the body would on a meat-based diet for at least the first 3 hours after meals. The American Dietetic Association has concluded that a vegetarian or vegan diet is healthier than one that includes meat. People who do not eat meat have a lower body mass index, lower rates of death from heart disease, lower blood cholesterol levels, lower blood pressure, lower rates of hypertension, lower rates of type 2 diabetes, and less prostate and colon cancer. Seems like the boy has a lot more energy now. Let's take a few more steps back. A meatless diet can contribute to an improved environment in so many ways. The U.S. livestock population consumes more than 7 times as much grain as is consumed directly by the entire American population. It takes 2,500 gallons of water, 12 pounds of grain, 35 pounds of topsoil, and the energy equivalent of 1 gallon of gasoline to produce 1 pound of beef. Studies also show that a vegetarian diet could feed more people than a meat-based diet. Let's consider the pounds of edible product that can be produced on an acre of prime land. 20,000 pounds of apples, 30,000 pounds of carrots, 40,000 pounds of potatoes, 50,000 pounds of tomatoes, and only 250 pounds of beef. On top of that, only about 20% of the corn grown in the United States is eaten by people, with about 80% of the corn eaten by livestock. Pretty crazy, right? The majority of the people in the U.S. eat meat regularly. Let's take a closer look at why this might be.
I choose to eat meat because it gives me the protein that I need to get me through my days.
Grilling steaks and hamburgers every week is something that my family likes to do.
Yeah, I think meat is just easier sometimes, especially going to restaurants. Everyone just has more meat options.
Meat, it's all American. It's hot dogs, apple pies, Chevrolet. If you didn't have the hot dog, all you'd be left with was apple pie.
While the majority are meat eaters, only 3.2% of Americans are vegetarians.
I choose not to eat meat for moral reasons. I've been vegetarian for a few years now.
It's simple science, really. In the energy pyramid, 1/10 of the energy passes down from one level to the next. So approximately 1/10 of the sun's energy goes into plants, and 1/10 of the plant's energy goes into animals that eat it. And if we eat plants, we'd get substantially much more energy than if we ate animals.
I'm an animal person, and I'm really concerned about the way animals are treated. And I grew up in an Oscar Mayer town, and in a beef and dairy area, and I was really uncomfortable with the way I saw animals.
I don't know, it feels like a really mentally a healthy choice to make.
Some pretty valid stuff, huh? Now about that global climate change thing. Livestock account for anywhere between 18 and 51% of the global greenhouse gas emissions measured in CO2 equivalent. This estimate of 18% is a higher share than all emissions from cars, trucks, airplanes, and mopeds combined. Let's consider water as well. According to the EPA, agricultural runoff is the #1 source of pollution in our waterways. The massive amount of waste produced by factory-farmed animals each year is usually used to fertilize crops, which ends up running off into the waterways, along with the drugs and bacteria it contains. Pretty crazy, right? Clearly, a meatless diet can have some pretty awesome effects on the global environment. But let's not forget the impact it can have on people's minds as well. Researchers have found that a higher intake of produce results in more energy, calmness, and greater feelings of happiness. So, replacing that chicken with some hearty veggies may just be the cure for your bad mood. Making the meatless leap can be daunting for those of us who've grown up with meat as the main star of every meal. Maybe the next time you're about to eat a steak dinner, you could step back and think about it. Choosing to cut meat out of your life may be the best decision you've made in a while.